Okay, we'll start the City of Olivet's Planning Community Design Commission for March 2nd to 2023 to order. Since Carol's not here, will somebody please call the roll? All right, great.
All right. Jody Rich, absent. Brian Lewis, present. Tim Spiegelglass,
Present.
Carol Wagner,
Absent.
Daniel Rosenberg,
Present.
and Robert Jurgle.
Present. Let it also be known that City Council Liaison, Councilmember Missy Waldman's in attendance, as well as Carlos Trejo, City of Olivet's Planning Community Development Department's Director, and Dawn Doty, Senior Planner. And I'm missing anybody? Go. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being in attendance. Just as we always do, we kind of go over procedures of how things are. With each agenda item, there'll be a presentation by staff that will go through the item that's there. There'll be some discussion with staff among the commission members, and then we'll then likely bring on the petitioner to kind of discuss any impacts or changes to their petition or present their petition that they're come here for. Also, we do have time for public comments, and these are public comments related to items on the agenda that we'll go through and we'll add. But we also have public comments, kind of more general public comments that aren't related to anything on the agenda item. But if people want to kind of express any ideas, we'd be welcome to hear it. We do that kind of after these introductions. We do ask you that if you do have a public comment to raise your hand. We'll also look to the online to see if anybody's there. And we do ask you to, if you're in attendance, to raise your hand, and then we'll call on you and you can come up and speak at the podium. And we ask you that you state your name and address for the record. It's same with the people who are might be being brought on for the public on the Zoom. We ask you to make sure that you have your camera on and your microphone on. There's two buttons that you need to select. So when you do get brought on, look for those. Okay, they're the pretty, kind of a video icon as well as a microphone icon. That being said, I think we'll go ahead and just to be respectful of everybody's time and to make sure everybody's opinions are heard, we do ask that those public comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. All right. That being said, let's move on to, well, I guess we'll go straight with the comprehensive plan update.
Yes, sir.
That's fantastic.
Yes. And Chairman, if I can introduce Beth Quindry with Shockey and Associates. She's the lead consultant that is assisting us in the comprehensive plan update. Quindry? Sure, it would be, yes, please.
Beth, please turn on your microphone, and everybody please be reminded to speak directly in your microphones and turn them on when speaking. Thank you.
It's helpful for everybody who's online because you guys might be able to hear us, out in the audience, but they won't.
And everybody who's taking minutes for the third time. Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Beth Quindry with Shockey Consulting, and I'm very excited to be here. So we've been working for the last few months kind of behind the scenes on the comprehensive plan, but we're starting to launch our public engagement phase. So that's exciting, and we wanted to come here tonight to give you an update on what you can expect over the next few months as the plan starts to become more visible. Right now, I'm going to go through the process diagram that's up on the screen there, and I'm going to work my way up from the bottom to the top to really think about, if you think about a comprehensive plan as public policy making, that's what you're doing. It's a lot of public policy embedded in your comprehensive plan. This really walks us through the decision-making process and how the information flows. So we start at the bottom because community engagement is so important. As you hired us on to do this project, you talked a lot about the importance of public engagement. So that's really a foundation for what we'll be doing. So we had our launch yesterday. I'm calling it our soft launch because we're not out with signage in full swing. You'll start to see us more visibly soon. But since we have members of the public here, I'll put in a plug for our website, which is olivetcomplan.com. So olivetcomplan.com. We have a survey out there now. It's our first public engagement activity of many that will happen over the next few months. And so on that bottom line, you can see that we have our community survey there at the bottom. It's focusing on vision and issues right now. We'll start to do pop-up events in the community. You'll start to see signage in lots of places that directs people to our website. And then we'll be having a physical presence out in the community too. And then leading up to a visioning workshop that'll be really fun, exciting, lots of information to share with the community. It's going to be a really, we hope, a very highly attended event where we get to roll up our sleeves, get people in a room and really think about issues that are important to Olivet. So we're building up to that as our first phase of engagement. The next line up as you go is where you come in. So PCDC and council are on that next line. The way that we design the process, it's really, you're sort of at the heart of it. So you adopt, as you know, the comprehensive plan. So very critical that we're involving you throughout the process and keeping you updated. But rather than start with you, we're kind of starting with a little bit of public input. We'll have meetings with the staff. We meet our advisory committee for the first time next week. A couple of you are on that committee. So we'll use all of that to feed you some really good information, some initial feedback from the community when we meet with you in April. So you have 2 workshops on our schedule, that first one in April, and then another one in September. After we get through our issues phase, we've worked through some strategies, gotten some public feedback on that. We bring you strategies and a draft future land use plan. So we try to do some thinking and bring you something that you have to react to, is the way that the process is designed. So that's where you come in. And then we have an advisory committee that as I said, meets for the first time next Thursday right here. And we'll meet with them several times. We meet with the city management team. They're going to be involved heavily, they're going to be involved in implementing, and they know your community really well. So we have some workshops scheduled with them. And then we have our project management team there at the top. Carlos is going to get tired of us. We meet every 2 weeks and then email him, 2 or 3 times a day. So not all the time, but right now we're sort of heavy into getting started. So he and Dawn hear from us a lot, and they've been wonderful to work with and very responsive, which we appreciate. I did want to mention, okay, so on back on the orange line, the council, we have the council and the PCDC workshop together very intentionally, because even though it is your purview to adopt the comprehensive plan, we know that to implement the comprehensive plan and what comes out of it, you really need the elected officials. And so we want to have them collaborating with us from the beginning. So that's why you see those joint workshops, to align what you're thinking and what they're thinking. And since we do have members of the public here, and I think some may be familiar with what a comprehensive plan is and others may not. So I probably should have started with this, but a comprehensive plan is really our vision document for the community. It's a 15 to 20 year look at what the community wants to be possible. So it's really a once in a generation opportunity to define what the community wants to be. So it's a vision document. It's going to guide policy. There are some things that a comprehensive plan is not. And so it's worth pointing those out just to be clear about what to expect out of this process. A comprehensive plan is not immediate change. It's incremental change over time. You've done a fantastic job implementing your 2006 plan. And it's been, however many years. I'm going to do the math portion. Yeah. Like it's many years, but it takes a long time to implement a comprehensive plan. So you can think big, because it's gradual change over time. A comprehensive plan is not going to replace the market. We're not looking to do that. We're going to set the stage and know that it takes private investment in Olivet to make things happen. So it's not replacing the market. It's also not zoning. So we'll end up with a future land use map that you will approve. And then over time, your zoning can be modified to agree with that future land use map, but the plan itself does not change zoning. So huge, very, very important and impactful as a guiding policy document. But it's not quite your construction's not immediate and things will take some time to get that implemented. So Carlos, is there anything else I wanted to
No, I
mention?
think, that's it, except the registration.
Yes, yes.
Component of the plan is up and running.
Yeah, so the website, olivetcomplan.com, take the survey, please. And we look forward to hearing from everybody and working with you all over the next several months. I'd be happy to take any questions you have about the process, or Missy had a suggestion for us on the website. Happy to take those too. But yeah, we hope to see lots of people online and then in person as well. But any questions?
I have just one.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to start this, and I'm gonna admit that I have not signed up for it yet or
It's
taken
okay.
the survey, so I
Okay.
will. But for everyone in the audience, you know, as well as me, how long does it take to do the survey? Is it a very? It's
5 minutes at most. I think,
Okay.
5 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah. There's and I shouldn't put a plug too hard on this, but there's an opt-out point. There are about 10 questions, and then we say, all right, you know, we've got some more questions for you. But if you want to, you know, you can opt to do a shorter version. But I highly recommend doing the longer version. Yeah, there are a lot of interesting questions on there. It'll make you think about, yeah. It'll make you think and like talk to people about it, you know, and encourage them to take it and talk about the issues that it raises for you as you answer the questions. It's meant to be a little bit thought provoking, but we're looking forward to hearing what people say.
Great. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's great.
The longer version only takes about 10 minutes.
No,
So
that's
yeah.
great to know.
Yeah, yeah. We don't
Perfect.
want to ask too much of people's time.
That's great.
Okay.
Is this the same survey that was released a couple months ago, or is this?
Different.
updated? Okay,
That was a little baby survey, kind of a teaser survey when just designed to get people to give us contact information so that we could reconnect with them now. We knew that we were going to take a few months to get up and running. So that was just a tide us over survey. So we did collect that data and we're going to incorporate it into our vision work. But this is a broader survey, so different.
okay, so I won't be corrupting the data by taking it again?
Nope, you will not. And in fact, in the next couple of weeks, you'll probably get an email if you've taken that first survey, inviting you to take the second survey.
Okay.
Because we definitely want people to do both. Yeah.
I appreciate your interest in data integrity. Also, that it's not really duplicative either, you know, it's more fresh and in-depth really questions.
Mhm.
Whereas the first survey was much more surface level.
Yep. And I would note on the website, it does ask you, there is an option to register. And if you register, then we'll send you updates and let you know when activities are new. But you don't have to register to take a look at the site, read it, take the survey. There are some activities that require registration because we want to be able to monitor what's happening and encourage good behavior. So the activities that allow people to talk to each other, you have to register for those. But there are important and significant activities that don't require registration. So we know some people won't want to do that, and we respect that too.
Great. I think that's good. Is there any other questions or comments from council commission members? You know, since we do have people in the audience, I'm just going to ask them if they have any questions or comments about this whole process. Go ahead, sir. Cool. What, if you don't mind, you have to come up to the podium. Yeah, sorry. No, it does not. It does not.
Goodness, sorry.
Remember to state your name and address.
Ishan Desai, 9318 Kenneth. I went to the last or the Zoom version of the planning meeting. I don't want to sound dismissive, but I think I might have been the youngest person watching, you know, and it's hard for people who just are busy during the day to come to these things. When you guys have the meetings, I like coming to meetings, obviously. If you're able to have, you know, just something at night for, you know, for people who are working, and it'd be great. Yeah. That's it.
Great. Thank you.
Otherwise, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Anybody else? I'm gonna ask Carlos. Carlos, can you check the online if anybody is raising their hand or has a question?
Oh, if I could note that, looking at the timeline that, the engagement process, many of the, events occur in the evening and in other times that are not, during workout. So,
Okay, we
Thank you.
encourage everybody to participate. It's great to get as much information, as possible from the whole community. And if you don't mind, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, as long as they live in all of them. All right, thank you very much. It's very, very, looking forward to it. Carlos, did you have anything to add or? can we-
No, sir.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to just general public comments. I know we got things a little out of order, but we didn't want to take up too much time. A previous presenter, so. Anyone in the audience have a general comment? I'm seeing none. So Carlos, let's just check online.
Yeah, if you can give me 1 second here.
No worries.
Get this out.
It's good to see the headlines.
If there's anybody online that would like to speak before the commission regarding a general item outside of those that are on the agenda, if you can show your hand, generally located in the center lower portion of your Zoom window.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. So we'll move on to item number 5, old business. And item A is 9270 Olive Boulevard, Sunrise Dispensary. Carlos?
Bear with me 1 second, Chairman.
No worries.
Chairman, we have the petition for 9270 Olive Boulevard. It's for a medical and adult use recreational cannabis dispensary at the property address at 927 Olive Boulevard. I will note, last night, the city council took action on amending our chapter 450, which specifically deals with medical marijuana. They amended the ordinance to now deal with cannabis facilities as a whole in there. And I'm going to go over a couple of the items and note the changes that the council had incorporated from the commission's recommendation back in January. There is at this point, given the recent changes by the council, I would recommend, the commission not taking any action. The petitioner is here to address some questions and comments from the previous meeting, and then if there are any comments regarding the recent changes to chapter 450, and then of course, to permit some public comments, but that no action be taken at this time. All right. So I'm gonna kind of go through this process and first kind of inform the commission about Amendment 3. The purpose of Amendment 3 was to make marijuana legal under state and local law for adults 21 over, and to control commercial production and distribution while protecting the public health. Amendment 3's intent was to prevent the arrest and penalty of limited amounts of marijuana for adults, remove production from the illicit market and prevent revenue going to criminal enterprises, to prevent the distribution to those under 21, to prevent diversion of illicit markets, to protect public health by ensuring safety of products, and to ensure the security of marijuana facilities in there. And that's taken straight out of the Amendment 3 and the articles that were incorporated into the Missouri Constitution. I'll note that this section is not intended to allow public use of the driving while under the influence of, the use of workplace, and the use of those under 21 of marijuana products. And it's basically, just like our ordinances, kind of like the preamble of the process and what its intent is and its purpose. It describes a comprehensive marijuana dispensary facility. Previously, under Amendment 2, it was limited to medical marijuana. Now, a comprehensive marijuana dispensary facility allows both for medical and adult use recreational. Those facilities are licensed to acquire, process, package, store on and off the site, transport and deliver marijuana products. To have marijuana, marijuana seeds, marijuana vegetative cuttings, marijuana infused products, and drug paraphernalia used to administer marijuana. To sell to customers within the property or address as directed by the customer, so they can have like online sales, direct mail, direct drop-off sales, it's my understanding. And to conduct transaction orders that may occur at the dispensary through the phone or the internet, including third-party orders. So these type of facilities are permitted under Amendment 3, those 4 components. Amendment 3 also sets the regulations primarily enforced by the Department of Health and Social Services, Senior Services in there. The DHSS can grant and refuse licenses. They promulgate the rules regarding marijuana facilities. They develop forms, certificates, licenses, etc. They require tracking systems. They issue the standards for secure transport, and they have a process for annual reporting. The DHSS may not restrict, along with other government bodies, THC content in there. The DHSS sets limits of amounts, regulates advertising, maintains current level of current licenses issued by congressional district, and granted authority to lift or ease limit of licenses to meet demand and competitive markets. So right now, all facilities, the number of facilities is limited by each congressional district in there. And if I'm correct, the current number is 8 in District 1, or so it's in there. So you can have these many licensed facilities within a congressional district. District 1, which is part of all of that, the city of St. Louis and portions of St. Louis County composed of District 1 in there. Right now, again, the DHSS maintains that number, but they do have the authority to increase that through a process that's identified in Amendment 3 if the demand or competitive marketplaces goes a need. The DHSS also establishes the procedures for issuing, renewing, and suspending and revoking licenses. And the DHSS also establishes the security requirements, including lighting, physical security, and alarm requirements. I want to bring those to the commission's attention because, again, the state, through this amendment, established all these procedures, policies, and the authority who's regulating those, as opposed to leaving it to individual government authorities or so. Local governments are given some authority, and I'll go through those in a second, but a majority of this is regulated through the Department of Health and Senior Services. Local control. Local governments may prohibit operation through referral of a ballot question or citizen petition only on a presidential election year. So in 2024, the council or through a resident petition can request to be placed on the ballot. The specific ballot language is identified already by Amendment 3, so it's not like you get to draft or put your own together. And that can only take place on a presidential election year. The purpose and intent of that, as it's noted in Amendment 3, was to reduce the cost of the election by having it on that scheduled date. Local governments may maintain zoning authority for location in there, and we have, under our zoning ordinance, recognition of where dispensaries and including manufacturing, infusion facilities, and testing facilities can be. Local control, we're capped on the extent the facility may be located from a school, daycare, or church. We can't exceed the current 1,000-foot cap, but we can reduce that if we chose to. In this case, and I'll go over our chapter 450, we maintain the 1,000-foot distance. Look, we set the method, the method of measurement is dictated by Amendment 3. So we don't get to define how that 1,000-foot distance is set. That is done through Amendment 3, and that is by walking within a public space and there. So it's not like as a crow flies in a straight direction.
So this bullet sets method of measurement that should
Correct.
be on that.
Amendment 3 sets the method of measurement. So I apologize.
That's all right.
Wording.
Okay. Yeah, just want to make sure.
Appreciate it. No local government may impose transportation certification to make operations unduly burdensome, but may enact ordinances and regulations not in conflict governing time, place, and manner. in there. And the transportation certificate is, again, is trying to impede the process of the transport or moving of products in there, like setting a road saying that you can't have this product through this specific road. Local control, you may also enact regulations governing the smoking in public areas and the consumption in designated areas. The council has made modifications to our municipal code to prohibit smoking in public areas and consumption in dedicated areas. The second part, I'm not sure the council did make those changes. Okay. And again, locally, a tax can be imposed, but that has to be through voters, an additional 3% tax on the sale of adult use recreational marijuana. Additional provisions under Amendment 3. You can sell any product in a manner designed. You can't sell any product in a manner designed to cause confusion. You can't sell edible marijuana infused candy in shapes or packages attractive to children or that are easily confused. Products have to be sold in child-resistant containers with clear, conspicuous labels, and those are specifically defined under Amendment 3 of what those labels have to note. The sale and display of products or accessories cannot be visible from any public place outside, so from the parking lot, from the sidewalk, you should not be able to see any of the products that are on sale or display within the facilities. The sale in the facility, people that do not meet the specific requirements can't go into the facility in there. So you can't take a child or somebody under the age of 21 into the facility. And every entrance into the facility has to be secured, and then also some provisions about the security of the internal entrances. So that kind of gives you a quick overview from a planner's perspective of the capacities of Amendment 3 and what has been incorporated in the Missouri Constitution, not into the revised statute, but into the Missouri Constitution. The provisions, the intent and purposes of regulating both medical marijuana and adult use recreational cannabis products. So for us in the city of Olivet, had a chapter 450, which regulated the medical marijuana facilities. We've changed that now to reflect the changes in Amendment 3. And in that, chapter 450 established provisions on where they're permitted for dispensaries, which is what we're kind of referring to under this petition, is that they're permitted in any non-residential zoning district, so long as they're 1,000 feet from a school, daycare, church, and any other marijuana facility. Council also amended the ordinance to include that the distances between dispensaries cannot be less than 1,000 feet.
But it could be if there was some, cultivation.
It's a universal term that cultivation, testing, infusion, and dispensaries are all facilities.
So
So
it has to be 1,000 feet from any
Correct.
of those types, so not just dispensaries.
And using the same line of sight or FCRF-wise measurement.
the same, yes.
It's actually not the line of sight. There's a specific wording in there where it's
How
like the
somewhat
common-
to how a pedestrian would
No,
legally
so it's
travel.
not, yeah, it's not as FCRF-wise.
Mhm. In terms of regulations that the city has adopted, is all activities can only occur in an enclosed facility, which is repetitive of what the state standard or the state constitution already reflects. The waiting area has to be separate from the sales area. That no product should be visible through glass windows or doors, and I think that's just a further clarification of what the Constitution already requests, and the consumption or personal use is prohibited on the site. Regarding security, our chapter 450 includes surveillance cameras at each entrance and in the interiors, that inventory be kept secured and locked, that there be a safe or a vault permanently affixed to the building structure, and that the chief of police be part of the review and approval of the security plan. And that one's more specific to all of that, as opposed to what's into chapter 14. And then chapter 450 also imposes hours of operation. The Missouri Constitution sets hours of operation for facilities, but again, given that the city has the ability to consider time, place, and manner, the council amended the recommendation that was forwarded from the commission to only authorize the hours of 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you'll recall, there was discussion at this level at the commission regarding dispensary hours and trying to treat them as retail use, and ultimately an amendment that was forwarded into the council's recommendation that they would be permitted from 8 a.m. To, I believe, 10 p.m. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The council decided to change that and impose hours from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'll let our liaison kind of address what the thought process was on that amendment from the council. And lastly, I want to note in chapter 450, there was a section in there regarding the sale of marijuana, whether it's in a dispensary or other type of facilities, that there's an error in there that that ordinance needs to go back to council to get clarified. I think the intent and purpose of the council was to adopt chapter 450 as we presented here and discussed, but it was brought to our attention that there is an error within that kind of prohibits the sale of any type of product in there. And I think it was dismissed. No, it's not a Scrivener. It will require the council to acknowledge it and make that change. So just wanted to give the commission that information. After that, Chairman, there's a little bit more I'd like to go, but if it's possible, if the liaison can kind of talk about the hours.
Thank you, Mr. Trejo. Thank you, Chairman and Planning Community Design Commission. As Carlos said, and as the regulations in the Amendment 3, the city can regulate time, place, manner. Somebody created something and I did my homework off of it. And the majority of, well, I should say, yeah, the majority of those facilities that I've looked at, typical hours are 10 to 8, 10 to 6, Sunday and Monday, 11 to 5. The particular dispensary that wants to come to the city of Olivet, when I look at their time frame, they're 11 to 7. First dispensary. We heard from the citizens concerns that it's near a bus stop. I saw, what I saw, and I asked my council to consider 2 small revisions that I felt would address, to the best of our abilities, safety, concerns of being around when kids are there in the morning. And I will again say, going to their own website to see what their hours are. And I felt that the 11 to 7 was a fair 8-hour-a-day operation. Some places don't even let them have 8 hours a day. So it was a request that I had made and the council understood, and I think we all agreed with. And so in our regulation, this is dispensary effort number 1. And where we can set what we can set, time, place, manner, that was a discussion, council agreed. And that is, for, again, I'm gonna say this, public safety, community safety, concerns of fears of crime. You don't have much darkness after 7, maybe a few 2 months out of the year. And that these two to us are a way to address those types of concerns with a new business, something new that is allowed in Missouri, and that we cannot, I forget the word Paul says that we have in the Constitution, we cannot say no, we cannot be arbitrary, we cannot be capricious. So with that,
Unless it's voted down.
yeah, right. It will be up to the citizens in 2024. that's what the amendment allows, and that's what we're going to respect. With regard to 1,000 feet, well, right now, schools and others are 1,000 feet. And in the discussions, let's keep it consistent. It doesn't stop another dispensary from coming into our community per se by having that measurable. Again, there was not any measurable for marijuana facilities in the commercial corridor. So when the questions were asked, can we limit, can we say no? The questions were presented to the attorney. He came back saying, we do not have that for the commercial corridor. Yes, you can. And the council adopted the 1,000 foot between.
Thanks for that update. Carlos, well, is there anybody on the commission that has questions for Carlos?
The only question I had on the local slides, if you go back to 10 or 11 or 9, I forget to this, Carlos.
This is the ours.
No,
the local. Okay. There you go.
We said no local government may impose transportation certificate, to unduly burdensome. And I think to what, but this is referencing only transportation certification. Wasn't it also overall, to your point, we can't make it unduly burdensome, correct? Beyond just transportation.
Yes, that was the wording of the attorney. Yes.
So if you go back to that slide, time and place is pretty easy, to understand. Well, what's the manner? I mean, what some examples of that?
If you find something not called.
No. Would be my belief as a planner, but not as legal. I think it's something I would inquire with Paul to address.
Yeah.
For the commission, but my personal belief, the professional belief would be that the regulations between, allowing smoking in public spaces and offerings between facilities and things of that nature.
But
That's a
isn't
good
that
question.
place?
I just,
To address it, I found that, the concept of buffering is justifiable as a place and a manner restriction. Okay. That is an example of what was used for a justifiable place and manner buffering.
Okay, I'm just curious if there was a definition of manner or any examples. It's kind
I'll
of a
continue to
vague
look through
term, so-
it's something we'll inquire with the city attorney.
Yeah, okay. One other question I had, and you talked about the amount of THC in products. Whether that is you can't establish or not, and I was just, you cannot. Okay,
The city does not have the authority to
okay,
regulate that.
thanks for clarifying that. Any other questions? Comments? That being said, I think we'll hear from the
A
petitioner.
little bit more, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
And there,
Okay.
and that being said, again, it is through the adoption of chapter 450, the council has adopted the policy, the purpose, the intent for the regulation of marijuana facilities. The council has found, given the information provided, the discussions that occurred regarding operations, safety, and things of that nature, that the hours of operations between 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Are acceptable. The commission has no authority to increase the amount of hours in that place. The commission still has some authority to consider regulations, within the parameters that are noted here within this slide. But ultimately, again, the council, just like our chapter 428, has defined our design standards. So these are the things that we're indicating to the public, to our residents, to investors in there, that the city has found that these regulations are the acceptable minimums in there. So I do want to make that clear in there. So again, for example, hours of operation, 11 to 7 per the council's adoption is a reasonable amount of time for operations of a facility. As we go through the process and we talk about special permit uses in a second, I mean, the commission could find that somewhere there is a unique situation or such, but ultimately the council has established that this is an acceptable parameter. I just want to make that clear. All right.
Understood. All right, good, good. Okay, I think right now, unless there's any more questions.
Yeah, just a little bit more, sorry. So I'm gonna go through this process or take advantage, again,
Okay.
given that in here. So this is, the permit has been put in place. A special permit has to go through site plan review, community design review, and anything generally requires some type of concept stormwater management review. The operation of marijuana dispensary, both for medical and adult use recreational, requires special permit under chapter 450 in there. So let's talk a little bit of what is a site plan review, just so we have some background in the process. It ensures that adequate review and consideration of potential impacts upon surrounding uses and activities. The uses this procedure applies are permitted in accordance with the specified standards within the designated district. So the uses are authorized. The question is not, the commission is not here to question whether the use is appropriate for a district or not. They're called out within the district. But through site plan review, the commission can review and consider the impacts to surrounding uses and establish reasonable steps to minimize those negative effects that could happen upon the surrounding built or natural environment, as well as within the site itself. So again, it's always like the new homes. You know, you can build a new home and all of that, but you may not be able to build the home exactly like you want it to when it goes through this review process in there. Some of the things that the commission can consider in its review to minimize impacts on adjacent properties or within the site itself is the provision for utilities, especially like drainage and stormwater, visual buffering, parking, traffic and other activities, noise from traffic and other activities, pedestrians, convenience and safety, provisions for landscaping, open space, recreational facilities, signs and other identification, the impact on public facilities such as schools, effects on public income and expenditures, and other similar considerations. So this is the gamut, or at least lays out various things the commission can consider through the site plan review and request that steps be taken to try to negate any negative effects that any of these could have or would have on the surrounding properties. The commission is not limited to these solely, but should address and ensure that each of these is at least talked about through that review process in there. Pulling out one, for example, signs and other identification. The city has a sign ordinance. That sign ordinance establishes the minimum acceptable standards for signage. Everybody gets this exact amount. Everybody gets the allotment of where to place it. And then some specific properties have provisions to put monument signs. That is permitted by code. And that's something that the council has enacted and it's a right of every, of individual property owners. However, the commission through this process can consider that in some cases, the maximum signage or the content of signage should be restricted given its location or perimeter. So in this case, it's a major intersection, having the sign right at the corner where it distracts a site triangle is not has a potential negative effect on surrounding, not just properties, but traffic movement, that sign may have to be moved to a different location. So then is the special permit. The special permit process is a basis to determine the suitability of certain uses that are prescribed under prescribed conditions. These uses are not permitted except as determined to be suitable and compatible by the commission and ultimately the council through the prescribed procedures within our zoning order. So these uses are called out in the individual district, but they're noted, hey, these are special permit uses. And there is no guaranteed right that these uses would fit in every single location throughout that district. And therefore, through the special permit process, the city maintains some authority to take a closer look, further regulate, or even into an extreme saying, while this use may be permitted, this is probably not the best place for it. And there are some extremes, but you also have to justify your rationale and reasonings for this to make sure in there. The city reserves the full discretion to deny or revoke an application upon approval that, that the permit is unsuitable or incompatible with the surroundings, or conditions of approval are not being observed, and even revoke a special permit that had been granted because of the result of activities or impacts that were adverse to what the initial content or intent was. The commission may recommend to the council conditions to protect areas surrounding proposed uses and to preserve the basic purpose and intent of the underlying zoning district. So in the case of the commercial office retail district, again, you're trying to promote commercial office and retail type of uses. And you can recommend additional parameters given the individual type of uses and concerns that you may have within those that are described. But ultimately, you can't tell them no unless you have specific findings of why it's not applicable in a specific area. I think that there's a level or a standard that's imposed there before you can go to that extent. Now, in its considerations, the commission will be looking at, does the use or the improvements associated with the use further the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan is not going to call out every specific use. If you recall from our last meeting and the private dog club, I mean, you can go throughout the comprehensive plan and look and look and look, and you're not going to find dog, and you're not going to find dog park. But what you will find is an objective to expand the type of amenities that are provided in our industrial parks, to explore other opportunities where business services can benefit from other uses or things like that. So those two issues were used as part of the review process when we did the dog park in our previous meeting. Also, the improvements that were being done were consistent with the design goals and the landscaping goals of the comprehensive plan. Commission can also include assessing the suitability of the proposed use for the specific site. Again, this aspect comes out, is there specific concerns given the sizing of the site, the location of the site and such. You can also impose efforts to mitigate those type of spillover effects. And you have the right to buffer, prescribe exterior finishes, designate open space improvements. And these could be small, in terms of public sidewalks or wider areas or green space, to establish time limit to impose conditions. And consider the adequacy of public facilities servicing the area. So there could be the street network, the transportation network, and such. So when we review a special permit, we take those into consideration as part of the process in there. To help guide us in making those decisions, the city also has adopted additional codes to help us in this process of what is acceptable as per the city council for the city of Olivet. One is our sign regulations. Our sign regulations establish the general rules, including like the prohibition of pole signs and roof signs, and it also provides us the regulation of temporary signs. Our sign regulations allow a wall sign on each elevation not to exceed 7% of wall area. That's permitted by right to each business in the COR district. It allows certain properties in the COR district to put up monument signs. That sign size is based on the frontage and requires a design review to the commission. Our sign regulations also permit directional signs to be placed on the property. In addition to that, we have Chapter 425. Chapter 425, in summary, states, anytime somebody's doing something to the exterior, this commission has authority to serve as an aesthetic and design review board. And that's what community design is generally about. To further that, we adopted design standards in Chapter 428 for developments along the Olive Boulevard corridor. And that was to help assist the process of the review board of the community design process. Instead of being arbitrary and capricious that we want something here, but over here we want something different. Chapter 428 established the city acceptance standards for site planning, streetscape, landscaping, architecture, and lighting. Some of these include that every commercial property that goes through a community design review should provide a transition yard and a screen wall. We had that discussion, I think, at the last meeting. I think the revisions that have been submitted reflect now that the screen wall per chapter 428 has been provided. The screen wall is something similar that you see the most exposed one that we have at this moment now is at Olive Crossing. We've seen the long wall that's been put up in place along the border of the common ground with Stony Towers. Firestone has one here, and so does the mobile station. It establishes what our streetscape and streetscape profile should be in there. So as we get into discussions about barriers along the street and such, the city already has accepted or approved design standards of what should be permitted along the street. Again, through a special permit, the commission does have authority to consider unique conditions in that process. But at a minimum, the city has established what that design should be. And then, of course, as noted, building materials, landscaping, and exterior lighting. So that being said, so now we take a look at the comments that have been brought forward to the commission since its January 19th meeting and other comments that we've received in there. And how do we apply the process of site plan review, special permit review, and community design to the components of the issues that have been brought forward by residents, by commission members on other discussions, and how those are being addressed, because this is a special permit use process. And while the code already establishes minimal acceptable standards, the commission has the authority to consider that a use may merit an additional height, additional tree, or additional consideration, based on the facts that are and there. It's my role to then report back to the commission that these items that have been brought forward, are all fully addressed. May not be fully addressed to the extent of an individual, but as a consensus, the commission feels that the items have been addressed, or at least attempts have been made to try to mitigate or minimize, the impacts of these type of issues we'll have. Chairman, sorry for the long-winded discussion. Again, we did receive revisions from the petitioner. He is here in these revisions. Again, at our last meeting, the location of the main entrance was relocated to here. This still reflects that. So instead of having it on the western side, it's now on the eastern side facing the shops. They had noted that they're providing the buffer screen wall in accordance to chapter 428 here along the south perimeter of the property. Chapter 428 says that buffer wall has to be within 10 feet of the property line. It doesn't say you have to put it right at the property line in there. They have the flexibility to come to the commission to say, we want it 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 5 foot, as long as it's not more than 10. Then the commission has the authority to review and say, yeah, that's reasonable, or, we want the placement here or there. They have worked with the adjacent property owner to the south to try to maintain some encroachments that they have on their property and are willing to permit or continue. And therefore, the proposed buffer screen wall pretty much aligns the existing wooden fence that they have on that site right now. So even though that wooden fence is extended into their property and the neighbor next door has used it in there, they're fine with that. They also address the streetscape along Dolores Avenue and show how their proposed design is to address that and then provide the additional landscape. So a light plan has also been submitted. We're still looking through those items in there, and that's all I have. Mr. Minor is here, but I'll be glad to answer any specific questions.
You haven't gone through and done a full report yet?
No, sir.
No. Okay, so that's coming,
And some of it, to do that, I needed the guidance of chapter 450, what the council has adopted in terms of what are the reasonable standards for the office.
That was very helpful to go through the history of everything that was there. Is there any way you could make those revisions for those, items that were in error and then
Yes, absolutely.
reissue that and maybe send it to all of us?
Yes.
Because I think it's a good guide to kind of understand, some of the,
Will do.
there's a lot of moving pieces with this. So I'd like to check it out, but Being said, I think we could hear from the petitioner now. That'd be great.
Thank you. Good to see you all again. As Carlos mentioned, we revised our site plan with the landscape, the buffer wall, a light plan. We discussed signs. Basically, Carlos said your signs will comply with code. That's it. That's the end of story. And I agree, they will comply with code. I did want to point out on our lighting plan,
Do you have any examples of the signs yet or no? Not yet.
I have some very generic mock-ups of them, but you will see them before the next meeting. In regards to the lighting plan, that building already has multiple exterior lights around it. It has way more lights around it than what our other locations have. That's because our external security cameras have night vision on them and they don't require lights to be able to see 20, 30 feet away from the building. So we'll actually be using less exterior lighting fixtures than what are currently on the building. And we will make sure that we have bulbs that have more of a yellow hue, so they're more of a warm glow than a cool glow. I know that you had mentioned that our current business hours showing on Google are from 11 to 7. And that is true of our current St. Louis location. All of our locations, we have 5 locations around the state. They all have different hours of operation because they're all in unique locations that require different hours of operation. The location on Michigan Avenue had been closed since April. We opened it back up on a trial basis when adult use passed, just to see what would happen. It's only open 5 days a week and it is only open from 11 to 7. So that is what you saw. And that's what's in the code now. So moving forward, that's where we're at. Let's see. So I wanted to talk a little bit about traffic flow. Tomorrow will mark 1 month since adult use sales began in the state of Missouri. We have quite a bit of data right now around what that looks like in each of our locations compared to what it looked like under medical only sales. We anticipated that our sales and customer volume would increase about 2.5 times from medical to adult use. It's actually increased 3.2 times. And that's across the board at all of our locations. We staffed up at all of our locations. We had line leaders in the parking lots prepared to direct traffic and get people in queues to get in the door. None of that has been necessary. We have never had people waiting in a line out the door. Our busiest location is Kansas City. This location here won't be like Kansas City. In Kansas City, the store is visible from Interstate 29 and it is right off of the exit. 130,000 vehicles a day go past that store. That is our highest revenue and highest volume store. The busiest day that they have ever had, adult use became legal on February 3rd, which was a Friday. By the following Saturday, the word had spread that adult use is now legal in the state of Missouri. And that following Saturday, which would have been February 11th, is the busiest day that any of our locations have ever had. In Kansas City that day, their busiest hour was between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they saw 80 they had 80 transactions in 1 hour at that location. Now, Kansas City location only has 8 parking spots. So obviously it was kind of like Black Friday at that store on that day, with people circling the parking lot, waiting for a spot to open up. Overall, in the entire month of February, they are open 13 hours a day from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. in Kansas City. In the month of February, they saw on average 529 customers a day. That breaks down to 40 per hour. So if we have 8 parking spots and our average transaction time is less than 15 minutes from the time someone arrives until they leave. So if you have 8 parking spots and those spots can turn over 4 times an hour, that means you have 32 parking spots per hour. They average 40 transactions per hour. So in Kansas City, there is generally someone driving around the parking lot waiting for a parking spot to open up. I think that this store here is going to be most similar to our location in Maryville. Maryville has a very similar population number that you have here. They also have a college campus. That location is also the closest one in the state of Missouri to both Iowa and Nebraska. And 50% of all of our customers are coming from out of state to Maryville right now. So if it wasn't for the college, it wasn't for being that close to Iowa and Nebraska, that store would be very similar to our other rural locations in Clinton and Macon. But because of the incoming out-of-state people and because of the college being there, it's our number 2 volume store. And during the month of February, they averaged 243 patients per day, which is 24 per hour. Again, I think we have 10 or 12 parking spots there in Maryville. We've never had a line out the door, and actually we have plenty of excess parking at that location for people to get in and out as necessary. And if you go on Google, just like you did, you can look at any of our locations, Sunrise Dispensary, Maryville. You can see a graph of the busiest times of day and the busiest days of the week. And right below that, it will say the average person spends 15 minutes here. That data is going to also include all of the transactions over the previous year from when we were a medical only dispensary, and transactions took a lot longer than they do now. So that 15 minutes is a reflection of, 1 year of medical and 1 month of recreational. And it's still less than 15 minutes. This store is going to be designed in a way that none of our others are, in that we will have a pickup window. Currently, if you go into any of our dispensaries, you walk in to a reception area. We have a receptionist who sits behind bulletproof glass. They check their ID, they check all their credentials. They push a buzzer to allow them into a waiting room. When the staff to customer ratio is appropriate on the floor, a salesperson will go and get the next person out of the waiting room, buzz them through a door, bring them to the sales floor, let them purchase their product, and then they check out. And that whole thing averages about 15 minutes. This store is also going to have a pickup window where someone walks into the registration area, they show their ID, there's a window directly to the sales floor, and they can hand them their item that they ordered online, and they can turn around and leave. So they don't have to go through the waiting room process. They don't have to go through the sales floor process. That will speed up transactions at this location.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
How would they pay?
When they order online, they have to pay online prior to arriving.
Okay, thank you.
A couple other things that I just recently looked up today. Across all of our locations, late afternoon on Friday is the busiest time, between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock on Friday, or between 4 and 6 really, is the single busiest hour of the week at each of our locations. The second busiest is midday on Saturday, so between 1 and 2 o'clock on Saturday. The slowest times of the week across all stores are on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, really anytime. There's just not a whole lot of volume at any of our locations. So the weekends are the busiest time, and those are the hours that they are the most busy at. We would prefer to have more parking. We'd love to have 20 or 25 spaces. We'd love for our parking lot to be bigger, but it's not. And based on 1 month of data from our other locations, and having the pickup window for, rapid walk in, walk out, take your item and leave, I think it can be manageable. I do know there's going to be days where it's going to feel like it's not manageable. We were prepared in Kansas City to have a line leader outside. Black Friday is a big day at dispensaries, just like it is at any other retail operation. On those days, we'll have extra staff. We'll have people in the parking lot directing traffic. We'll have them getting people queued up in line. If they haven't ordered ahead of time, we can have people just like Chick-fil-A with a tablet in the parking lot taking an order, so that by the time they get in the door, they could pick up their order at the window, get back in their car and leave.
When you say directing traffic, though, I'm curious, like the parking lot's only so big, where are they directing?
they're going to be directing them that, I'm sorry, there's no spot. You cannot park on that street or you'll be towed. You may just need to leave and come back in 20 minutes. I mean, because they can't really direct them anywhere else, but we will have people on the busy days like that, letting customers know that they cannot park their car on Dolores and walk in. And if there's not a spot open, they're just going to have to wait.
I'm wondering, with the opening to the other shopping center, will people just go down there, park and walk on the sidewalk? But you couldn't stop, somebody could park in any parking lot and walk over there.
Right.
Yeah, and we couldn't stop them from doing that, but they'd be doing it at their own risk because I don't think Mr. Yowitz really wants overflow parking in his parking lot.
From Friday from 4 to 6.
A lot of good information that you just presented, but you went very fast.
Okay,
Is there any way you can send that
Absolutely.
to Carlos?
Yep.
With information,
Mhm.
that would be helpful. And Carlos, is there any way we can kind of look at other dispensaries, in the metro area? See how those numbers kind of match up to.
Yes, so we can take a look, and we've been kind of eyeing the three primarily along the two primarily along the corridor, and then one off of Lundberg. Like looking at volumes at different times in there. What I will note, based on the information that we have through a list server with other planners and through information from the St. Louis Planning Association, no community has changed its ordinance in terms of how a dispensary, how parking should be applied to a dispensary. They all have it still under a retail use. And that number ranges anywhere from 3.3 to 6. Depending on which community that you have, we're kind of in the middle in there. And of course, the building facility, the way the ordinance reads meets the minimum parking requirement. I'll still look, to see if other communities within the state have made any changes. And also with our neighbors to the east and the Illinois side. Experienced some of the higher volumes because they were kind of early on in the process, but I'm not aware of anybody that.
But you would agree, having the entire, operation or during those peak times with cars circling wouldn't be desirable.
It wouldn't be in the city's best interest, yeah.
Right.
I just have one. So you have that 8-foot tall block wall that's on the west hand side of the property.
the south side
I
or the west side.
think it's the west side, yeah,
Okay,
that you guys are proposing. I'm very concerned about that blocking people driving by and having a safety issue with that. That's a big wall to put up right on that street. So
that was
I'm not
actually
sure.
requested by
Yeah.
Carlos that we put that in
Okay,
there.
I'm not sure, but I just want to make sure that that's not gonna impede any
That's also-
sight of line
Yeah,
coming from Olive and making that sharp cut in there or anything like that.
But keep in
This
mind, the
is right here.
street is not on that dotted line. The
Right,
street
it's-
is further over, because
Right.
you kind of see the curb cut, so, by the time a car pulls in, I think it's good to worthwhile to check kind of what the distance is from the actual curb back to the end of that wall and verify.
And Chairman, just to make sure, if I understand Mr. Spiegel last is concerned, you're talking about this wall here along the south property line. And then Dolores right here, not Olive Boulevard.
No,
He's talking about the one on
the one on
west.
the west side.
Okay, the one on the west side is a 3-foot landscape wall as required by code. So it's only 3 feet in height.
Maybe I don't have glasses. I thought it said 8 feet. That's what I
No,
was worried.
now the ornamental fence that the state has put up along Olive, I believe that might be 6 foot. Not exactly
Yeah,
sure. It's taller, but of course, it's completely transparent.
It's in the picture. That's or bottom.
Right here. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
So just
Yep.
if I can, so this perimeter here is to be maintained. Along here, according to chapter 428, they had to provide a landscape knee wall, can't exceed 3 feet.
Okay.
In there with additional landscaping, just the wall. Now, that wall has a variety, we're not imposing what the standards of the design of that wall have to be. There are parameters to permit different types, and the one that we've traditionally seen has been that masonry type, and that's what most have selected. And then if you see this wooden fence back here in the back area, that wooden fence would then be replaced with the 6 foot tall screen wall, buffer screen wall.
And who's gonna be responsible for going in the back and cutting that grass and maintaining that?
It would be their property, their responsibility to work together with the neighbor. There's some joint, there's an understanding that they're aware that this encroachment exists already in there. So that would be something they'd have to maintain or have some cooperative agreement with the owner. Regarding on the Dolores side, a property owner traditionally is required to maintain all the way up to the curb.
Okay, so first of all, yeah, thank you for providing the data for volume that you're getting for the last month. Would you expect that to be typical going forward? Because I'm not sure if those numbers would allude to a surge because, this is so new and novel, and then maybe would die down, or would we expect the volume to grow from here?
From a business standpoint, I would love to say the volume's gonna grow, but already in the last 3 weeks, it's already leveled off. The 8th day that adult use was legal in the state of Missouri is the biggest day we've had. It has not grown past that. And we're starting to see trends. Every Tuesday, we have about the same volume. Every Saturday, we have about the same volume. Every Friday, we have about the same volume. It's leveling off to a level that's manageable for us and it's sustainable for us. There will be days of the year that are going to be big and, 360 days out of the year, our facility is going to operate perfectly. There's not going to be traffic problems. There's not going to be people waiting in line. There's not going to be people circling the block. On Black Friday, on April 20th, on July 10th, those 3 days, I know why Black Friday is what it is. The other ones, I guess, are specific to the cannabis industry. There'll be large volumes of people 3 out of 365 days of the year.
What kind of change in volume on those types of peak days?
I didn't go back and look last year to see what kind of bump we had on those particular days. I don't know. I will add that to my notes for Carlos.
That'd be great. I had a question a little bit about the monument sign, that's kind of on Dolores. And I'm wondering if that would be better to be moved potentially more to the east side of your entrance to prevent people from pulling in. to
So
Dolores.
we designed a basic mock-up of a monument sign, and then I discussed it with Carlos and, he said in addition to it meeting the size and the size regulations, he said there's going to be a setback regulation. And we didn't go back and review it at that point because he said, we're not going to necessarily talk about signs. Your signs are either going to be code or they're not going to be allowed. But if that monument sign by code doesn't fit there or doesn't make sense to go there, then my other thought was maybe it goes at the other end of that iron fence on the east side, and maybe that would be a better location for it. But if it's not going to be visible from Olive, then it may not make any sense to have it at all.
Okay. The fact that the west side is now the rear, is it going to have a different face when you come in with your other plans, or is it going to be kind of a common treatment all the way around the building?
Currently, the plan is to have it common all the way around the building. It's going to be painted white.
Right.
So.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead.
The windows up at the second floor, is that just look or are they accessible?
Yes and no. There are skylights inside of that building. The window, when you say accessible, I suppose that right now, if someone climbed up on the roof and broke out the window, they could drop about 15 feet into the building.
Okay.
The skylights will not be visible from the inside after we remodel. If someone wanted to break in a window and try to come in that way, they'd be stuck in a ceiling somewhere.
Okay.
We are debating possibly just completely covering up the windows and doing away with them to prevent someone from wanting to try to do that.
Right, absolutely.
Can I have one question? I haven't had this discussion with Mr. Minor, but just to put it on the table. One of the comments we heard from the council at the last two meetings was in regards to the security of the doors in there. And we've had our meeting with Chief Andreski to talk about perimeter security and surveillance. But about the placement of an expectation of bollards in there to start tight, is probably something we would want to see. We had a couple of examples from our neighboring communities that they use Jersey barriers, others that use the regular yellow. I see like 30 of them at McDonald's across the street here. But the goal would be the as necessary for the security and requirements for your building, to look at bollards that have some nicer looking bollards, in there, serving both as a means to enhance the facility and to protect access to any of the potential locations where you could have a threat or so.
Yes.
Okay.
Assume that in the next submittal, you're gonna have renderings of what it's going to look like.
Correct.
As well. Very good. Yes, okay. Right, okay, if there's no other further questions or comments, I think we'll just take on public comments at this time.
Okay, thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
John Desai, 9318 Kenneth. I'm gonna talk really fast, comes in a shade under 3 minutes. All right, sorry, guys. All right. So last meeting, the council received a slide deck with pictures and descriptions of more than 20 local dispensaries across the St. Louis suburbs and how they impact local residents. Dispensaries are evaluated by criteria such as parking, fencing, greening, and pedestrian egress. Almost every one of those dispensaries were effectively invisible to the residential neighbors. And by the way, you also have just the highlights of the amendments I have and everything. And then even after today's revisions, the new Sunrise design was still ranked as among the worst in the St. Louis suburbs because they've chosen a site with the fewest parking spaces in the suburban area and the most exposure to residential homes. There are at least 4 sites currently available for commercial lease on Olive Boulevard that are better, which you'll see in your slide notes. For this site, I have 7 amendments. For traffic, no car or pedestrian access from Dolores. The biggest issue of all the neighbors on Dolores, Kenneth, and Tess are traffic safety and congestion. For parking, Sunrise's parking lot should be connected with whatever they want to lease. They cannot lease spots west of Dolores because it'll create pedestrian traffic issues. For fencing, a 6-foot tall or high masonry fence on the west and south faces of the building, which both face a residential neighborhood, but also, keep in mind sight lines. For greening, along each fence, there should be a greening buffer of a tall tree like arborvitae to protect the tranquility of the neighborhood. For operating hours, we would prefer operating hours that end at 5 p.m. on weekends, so it avoids being a destination. Home state closes at 5 on Sunday, and it reduces crime and parking traffic issue related nuisances. For signage, we would like all the signage to be on the east side, which is the public entrance of the building. We actually don't want this building in the neighborhood because it reduces property value. So we want it to have an actual entrance that people recognize. Also for the monument sign, we don't want it on Dolores because there's so much traffic. We don't want people to come down Dolores thinking that that might be a possible entrance. And then also cement embankments, and I have notes as to why there's just been issues with it. For the traffic and parking amendments, I believe they're supported by ordinance 2683. The fencing and greening would be supported by the new purpose of the building site and the special permit. The operating hours amendment would be supported by this building being unique and burdening local residents. I just wanted to add some color in the parking issue before I closed. They have a total of 13 parking spaces with estimates of 7 to 15 employees for medicinal. Recreational will take more parking. Just totally. The owner of Starbuds in New City, Chris Chesley, in a KSDK article reported at least 300 customers each day on Friday and Saturday. The general manager of Field State Dispensary in Florissant, Nick Wegman, says he's needed to quadruple his normal staff with the introduction of recreational. I visited Starbuds this Sunday before last at 1 p.m. I counted 22 cars. It's not a peak time at all. Given the math, I don't see how this business could work, especially on peak days. It burdens traffic. And in lieu of the, if you think of the comprehensive plan, part of it is how it affects people and how it who live around this building. I don't see it makes sense. And especially when we have other sites in Olivet, that would definitely be much easier to mitigate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I can send this. I'm sorry for talking so fast, guys.
Shonda did get copies of.
I know I did, but this, yeah, it's just a lot of information. I appreciate it. Yeah, great.
Stephanie Todd, 7 Heather Hill, and I speak for other people who aren't here also. So to reiterate a couple of the points last made, yeah, there really shouldn't be any car or pedestrian access from Dolores. It's just too small a street. It just won't work. And again, parking's going to be an issue. We heard a lot of averages, average. Beware of averages. If my feet are in the oven and my head's in the freezer, on average, I'm fine. I'm perfect temperature. So, so the peak time is 4 to 6 on a Friday. Traffic is horrible on Olive already at that time. And Olive Crossing hasn't really opened yet, and the other apartments, they haven't fully occupied. And again, don't have any entrance or exit off of Dolores, because then cars are all going to be backed up there trying to get out on Olive, and it'll just be a nightmare. Those people will never be able to get out of their house. And the fence on the west side, it can't exceed 3 feet? Was that
The city doesn't allow any fence along a street side to exceed 3 feet.
okay?
Traffic issues.
Okay, yeah, I can see, so they couldn't see, because I guess I was hoping that again, along on the west side, it would be, you could make it higher. So again, people won't mistakenly turn down there or think I can park, because I mean, 3 feet, I could step over that, and I'm sure. Okay, so, and something else to maybe think about, if you can put in the special permit, because I think the lawyer brought this up at the council. If you can put somehow enforcements in it that if this happens, your license will be revoked, or the permit. Because the city council, they didn't go there, and I thought he said that they could be considered in the special permit.
And let me speak on that immediately. It is an administrative language with which for taking action to rescind a special use permit. And that really is a process that would be for anyone, any business that had a special use permit. So he is beginning to work on that. They're clearly not going to be open and ready before we get that language done, but that is administrative. What is our administrative process? So it's not your
Okay,
job.
all
It will
right.
be the lawyers.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
to us. Yeah.
thanks, because okay.
Chairman, and I'll note if it's okay, Mr. Todd, not taking your time. The ordinance that was prepared for the private dog park, that's before the council. And the ordinance that was prepared for Firestone and any other previous special permit ordinance that we've adopted has specific sections that identify specifically the process for violations, the procedures for mitigation, and the revocation of that. I'm not sure if they're going to get further revised and many times ordinances do, but I think it's been the same standard we've applied to the past, the past 5 years to any special permit that's been before in here. There was an amendment in the chapter 450 that was motion that was requested by the city attorney for the council to consider and approve. And that was to add, in the enforcement component of the ordinance or chapter 450, a reference to the city code as part of that enforcement process.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make one more point, that all the parking should be contiguous, don't have parking lots scattered about that they're directing people to. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Go ahead, man.
Nina Schatzheimer Miller, 36 Pricewoods Lane. The ordinance City Council approved regarding marijuana facility special permits is inadequate and incomplete. I'm disappointed that so much was left unspecified, and I fear that residents will not be adequately protected. I suggest that a moratorium be placed on permits for these businesses until more is known about them. This does not further the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, and University City has at least temporarily halted recreational sales. In any case, the location of 9270 Olive is particularly bad for this type of business. It would be a poor choice for any retail business, but one that deals in a federally illegal Schedule I narcotic and requires all cash sales simply does not belong in a neighborhood full of young families and children. What should have been in the ordinance is this: marijuana facilities should not be located on lots with entrances that open to residential streets. These facilities should have tall, solid fences complemented by shrubbery on any lot lines that face residences. Since the facilities should not be located on lots with entrances to residential streets, it is unnecessary to require fences on those sides. But of course, common sense would dictate that if somehow such a location were approved, there would be fencing there too. All parking should be contiguous and not require employees or customers to cross streets. This is a traffic hazard and a danger to pedestrians. Facilities should close before dark so as not to become an invitation to criminal activity. Concrete barriers or bollards should be placed in front of entrances to provide security against cars ramming the building. No drive-through windows should be allowed. This is not a pharmacy, nor a normal retail store, nor a restaurant. How many retail stores in Olivet require bulletproof glass? If this particular location does not have the square footage required for a drive-through, then why was there such a window in their drawings? Is it gone now? Paul Martin was wrong when he said that no one will choose a location just because it has the square footage required for a drive-through. Of course they will, or they will expect a variance in the permit, so there should be a blanket ban. Facilities should be closed on bank holidays, as the greater amount of cash stored on site will be an invitation to criminals. This permit should not proceed because it allows car and pedestrian access to Dolores. This building was not designed to be a retail business, and residents who bought or built houses in the neighborhood could not have expected such a change. Unless you would live in this neighborhood with a marijuana dispensary on your street, it would be unfair for you to allow this business to occupy this location. The applicant is taking advantage of the fact that the first house on the east side is not owner occupied. Imagine the noise and traffic the occupant of that house will face. Would you want to live in that house? The applicant refuses to divulge where he plans to gain additional parking. Parking must not be allowed west of the building, as this would require customers to cross Dolores. Contrary to what Mr. Trejo said, children are permitted in these facilities, and I foresee grave potential for accident. From Olivet's own parking ordinances comes the rule that if public safety or convenience would be better served by another parking location, such space shall be 1, in the same ownership as the use to which it is appurtenant, and 2, such space shall be usable without causing unreasonable traffic congestion, detriment to any residential neighborhood, or hazard to pedestrians or vehicular traffic.
Ma'am.
Clearly, this location does not meet Olivet's parking ordinance. This site is unsuitable and incompatible with its surroundings.
Carlos, before you, it sounded like you wanted to clarify a few things after that last comment.
Yeah, the University City comment, I'm a bit unclear because they require a special permit for the recreational use. And it's on their agenda. So the council has specifically stated that they're prohibited or there's a stop. I'm not aware of that in there. I know through my peers, they've gone through the plan commission process and their recommendations. It's been mentioned a couple of times and not just by Ms. Miller, but I'm not aware that U City has a specific prohibition to them right now in there. And again, unless some information's been distributed that I haven't seen, to the best of my knowledge, they're going through their process right now.
And there are other recreational marijuana dispensaries already opened up in the other areas of U City, such as at the Loop. So I inquired myself, and it really was a misunderstanding, and that will proceed forward. Right now, all they're selling is vape pens until they get that permission.
Well, until we get clarification on that, let's just not try to debate things, back and forth. But we can easily call and find out, and verify that. Is that okay? Okay.
Is that a recent development?
All right, we'll verify that. That's good. Okay, sorry.
Jeff Schneider, 9324 Kenneth Place. So I'm gonna say a few things that have probably already been said as well, but one of the things I wanted to point out, I believe in the corridor elevated corridor plan, there's some language along the line of minimize spillover effects of noise, vehicles, lighting to surrounding residential neighborhoods on there, which leads me to just again think that this particular location is not, the right spot. It's by design not set up to do any sort of high volume transactional in and out sort of thing on there. If I use some of the numbers that were thrown out earlier, by my calculations, I heard 24 transactions per hour, on average or whatever. That's still, you divide that in an hour, that's still one car entering, one car exiting every 2.5 minutes into and out of these parking lots. And by the drawings that I saw, the entrance or the entrance exit coming out of Dolores has arrows going both in and out. So it's intended to have people coming down the street and entering and exiting on Dolores, through Dolores, to get in and out of this. Again, we raise a point time after time. Kids are playing around there. The prime busiest time, 4 to 6 that we're talking about. Kids are out after school. They're running up and down these streets, all there. It's a safety issue from my perspective. And it was already in one of the previous meetings, it was said Dolores is an inadequate street in general, and yet we're going to dump more traffic guaranteed onto it on there. The lighting thing, I guess if that's going to be no brighter than it is today, okay, no harm, no foul, but I would still like to really see if that will be the case. We've mentioned the potential for crime and that sort of thing. The signage, the little 3-foot wall along there. Part of the reason to have a fence was to try to kind of segregate this from the neighborhood side. A little 3-foot wall simply isn't going to do it, but I guess if there's regulations that say there's no option, it's just means we're going to be seeing this business from the neighborhood. And I wish there was something that could be done on that. The monument wall sign, I agree with what was said earlier. People are going to see that sign and see the bigger street and say, that's where I turn into this business. We're going to have more traffic coming across there and, just being a problem. And then obviously the general parking if there are the busy days or even not so busy days where people can't find a parking spot, I guarantee they're gonna turn on to Dolores, find a parking spot. Thank you. Thank you.
Cindy Schneider, 9324 Kenneth, and just ditto everything that everybody.
Please
else
speak
said.
into the microphone.
Sorry. Cindy Schneider, 9324 Kenneth, and ditto what everybody else said, and that the busiest time is Saturday afternoon, and that's when everybody is out, kids are out, people, the neighborhood, all the residents are out, running around, doing errands and stuff, and if there's traffic coming in and out, it's already a hard time. It's just not a good location for a high volume place, and there's kids, and it's a safety issue. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
We've spoken or heard from everybody in the audience. Carlos, can you check to see if there's?
Yes, I know we do have online, Mr. Murray. Want to transfer you to
As a reminder, look for the microphone and the video icons so you can turn those on. Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason Murray, 9328 Kenneth Place. I'll be even briefer than I was planning. Sean hit a lot of my high points, but just to reiterate, I really think you all should deny this permit. It's incompatible with the location. Two primary reasons, which we've all hit on: parking and traffic issues, proximity to homes. The city code has standards for parking and traffic based on business size, lot size, et cetera, as Carlos noted previously and mentioned tonight, but it obviously can't account for every single situation and unique type of business that may or may not be in high demand at any given time in the economic cycle. The code might say, right, like retail stores require X number of spots per square foot, but obviously an Apple store is going to have more traffic than a Sony Walkman store, right? Even if they're treated the same under the ordinance. So the petitioners have already acknowledged they would like more parking. They reiterated that tonight. They've previously acknowledged they're trying to work with nearby businesses to acquire additional parking, which it sounds like was unsuccessful. They have made a lot of revisions to their site plan, but they haven't, even though they've heard our concerns, have not wanted to close that access point onto Dolores. And it's because they know that the lot it doesn't have enough spaces, and they know their customers are going to go to Dolores and elsewhere, and they want to make it easy for them to access the business through Dolores, even though it's the back of the store. But and as we've said, that'll just create a ridiculous hazard and an imposition for nearby homeowners. I was intrigued to hear that they have line leaders that they have to, employ in certain locations, and they have to staff up to have people direct traffic. It just doesn't feel like that's the right kind of, business for this particular location. Situations like this, it's why you all exist, right? You all are the experts, and it's not just about the math, what the lot sizes and the parking spots. It's, you can understand, right, that certain businesses are going to create more of a traffic hazard and more issues for the residents. If you live in this area near Dolores and Olive, if you drive by it at all, it's already pretty difficult to get into and out of. And that's without a high traffic business open. Today, it's pretty hazardous. I can only imagine what it's going to be like if this business goes in. So, I'd reiterate, I think this is a square peg into a really small round hole situation. Thanks.
Thanks.
If there's anybody else who would like to speak in regards to this agenda item, again, if you can show your hand, raise your hand. Ms. Underwood, I'm going to transfer you over as a panelist. As coming on, if you can turn on your mic and your video, and then state your name and address.
You're still muted and the video is not on, if you can hear us. You know, on their icon, I don't know where it's located. Carlos, would you?
Yeah, it should be at the lower left-hand corner of there you go. There you are, Ms. Underwood.
Am I good? All right, well,
Well, if you could turn on your video too.
And now yeah, there you go.
all right, so I'm a technology idiot. Do I have to state everything again?
Nothing came through, so this is the first audio.
Adrian Underwood, 9122 Old Bonham Road. I wasn't actually expecting to speak, but listening to all of this, I would simply like to reiterate, it is so obvious that that site is inappropriate for a retail location. I really don't know why we're having so much conversation about it. I support my neighbors on Kenneth and Dolores in the area, even though I don't personally live on that street. It's just not good for Olivet. There's plenty, as somebody else said, there are plenty of locations that are so much more appropriate. And that's all I have to say. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else online? I think we've heard from Adrian, Jason. I think there's Maureen and Sean. So if you are, we'll give you a few more seconds to chime in. Okay, seeing none, I think we'll go ahead and any other questions or comments from members of the commission?
I think we've approached this before, Carlos, but obviously one of the biggest concerns among many is the entrance and exit on Dolores, and understand why. I'm absolutely sympathize with that. I guess I know we generally try to avoid extra curtains and extra entrances on all of, but is it even feasible, or do we even have the ability to control it, or the MoDOT, if we wanted to kind of open up that second part of Olive and close the one on Dolores?
It is well within the parameters of the commission to consider. I would note that such a decision would be contrary to the Olive Boulevard master plan that the commission's adopted, along with the goals and the objectives of the comprehensive plan, which the commission has adopted and such. And we've seen results of when accesses are restricted from public streets, go between Subway and US Bank at Basswood, probably one of our worst intersections because of the number of curb cuts right across from Olivet Center. Oliver, with the restriction of the post office being able to access the road, but yet we have others, Family Dollar to the back pain chiropractic center has access onto Margaret. We had the 143 unit Oliver access onto Freeze after, and there was lots of objection from residents on the north side of Olive regarding that access in there. So within our plans, I noted the direction that I've gotten from the commission on these is to try to utilize our public streets to help manage access on Olive Boulevard. And all those plans have identified that there is a traffic issue in Olive. We know that the volumes are in there, and the objective for us to improve that is to better manage how people enter and access Olive Boulevard. And there are some, some parameters for us to consider in that process. But again, it's within the commission's realm that is something they want to consider restrict, or so. I think that's kind of contrary in terms of the direction that I've been given to try to push through our various planning processes.
But is Dolores, would that be a suitable choice if it's already deficient?
And I think one of my concern, and I remember the conversation, the Oliver, like people not being happy or others. I think the difference would be is I could be wrong, but I think it's unlikely that people are saying they're visiting the Oliver and they're parking on that public street versus I imagine what's unfortunately probably more likely to happen is people are gonna park in the Sugar Fire parking lot and walk up that ramp. Safety concern versus hopefully they go to the sidewalk if they did that, but I'm just trying to be pragmatic about it, but not that every concern can be addressed, not that we can tell someone to buy something.
That is something that can be discussed. I mean, and that's one of the things in here. I'm trying to absorb all the information that's brought and all the guidance I get through our plans and all that about, promoting pedestrian activity in there, utilizing the streets. Yes, Dolores is substandard in terms of its width and all that, but it is a public street. You have two commercial properties that already access those, that we can take a look at what came first and when those decisions were made to put those aprons and all that. We are starting to see redevelopment on Dolores, and there is a park just south of the terminus there. Again, the street's intended for the movement of traffic. It's not a playground or play facility. So we have to balance that. The other thing is, again, I think it's clear, through our plans and visually, that there are traffic issues along the Olive Boulevard corridor. And that the community as a whole has to better address, and it's going to require some council action or investment, whether it's from the city of Olivet or the state to improve some of these aprons. I don't think Dolores will ever get a light given its proximity to the shops, but there may be other options or alternatives to help improve the traffic flow, because this hasn't even opened and we're already hearing there's traffic issues.
We're trying to project it.
Yeah, so now we're trying to project.
That's the whole point of trying to get volumes, trying to get an idea of how the traffic is going to be coming in and out of this facility and see what the impact is. And I do think, it might be something that's beyond what we can assess or you can assess. And we might need to get a traffic, study to just kind of take a look at it. And maybe there's a better option that they have.
And I think it's reasonable as part of the process of thinking through this, because again, getting a traffic study is going to come back with a result that the traffic volumes along Olive and the configuration of the street exceed their capacity. But I don't think that's the core issue that I hear in everyone. One is, what is the volume and the number of in and outs that a dispensary can have, and what can be done to accommodate that spread in there within the public street system, and even if it's restricting it on one to the other. The true issue is not, we know that several residents already have issues trying to get onto Olive from Dolores. We don't need a traffic study to tell us the same.
But we could also use a traffic study to show us what the projected wait time, what the change would.
That's correct.
And I think that would be important because
And that focuses the scope of what we're looking for, as opposed to someone coming back and saying.
Yeah, that's a known, but I think what I'm thinking, projecting the future is, let's say that, in the future, we find out that everyone's parking in the Sugar Fire, and we don't, and again, we're projecting, this could never happen, or it could only be those 5 days a year, so maybe it's not an issue, but if people are parking that parking lot and then the ownership there is upset, and then they're ticketing people, and then people are parking Dolores, and we're saying, okay, police need to ticket there, and it's like, I'm trying to avoid those situations, plus safety concerns, plus hearing the voice of the community, of course. So I think that's where I can agree that I don't know if a good option will come out of it, but.
Yeah, and just to see if, like, maybe there's one entrance that's in only and one entrance that's out. Maybe it's better to restrict turns, you could only turn right on this, but just to kind of, look at different options that would make sense with, that are reflective of the type of volume this is doing, and that's what we want to find out too, is what kind of volume, you guys are experiencing, especially the change, as well as what do other people see in the metro area. See if is it compatible with Kansas City, or is it compatible with the Maryville? Yeah, and I think it's all worthwhile to just kind of make sure that we're all seeing the same thing.
And we can engage, we've had the Lock Commuter Group do various studies. in there, and then CBB's done the studies for everything to the east of that. The goal here would be, again, is trying to define the scope as opposed to having the general traffic study. I think we can talk to them about the volumes, because the dispensaries is somewhat, like everybody pointed out, it is somewhat new. It's treated as retail, just like a CVS or Walgreens. And I don't know the community that's made any changes to their parking ordinance with the perception that they have a different type of demand. Or so, but like Mr. Murray noted, Chick-fil-A has a completely different volume than Chipotle.
Yeah, if a Chick-fil-A or an In-N-Out were open there, I'd have the same concerns.
So asking them to kind of take a look at, the information that's provided. If they have information that's been assembled already, again, somewhat new in there. And I don't mean new to provoke anybody in a bad way. It's just a lot of the data, treats it as a retail. And other states, looking at their codes and how their parking regulations are set, they fall under the same retail umbrella for parking.
If we can get some comparisons, if we kind of estimate the number of volume, what type of retail is similar to that? To get an example, so that we can all understand it. So compare it to something that's already exists and already is known. And I've talked to a few other my friends that are on planning and zoning boards in different cities, and they're all playing catch up. In some ways, it seems like we're further ahead than a lot of them. So, which is nice, and it's very commendable by our commission and our city, and your help, with it. So, they're asking me, what are you guys doing? It's all new. I think that's what we're trying to do, is get our own.
We'll reach out to the Locklear group and not to say that we would go specifically with them. And they've done work for private entities, as they did with the BP Amical on Old Bonham, Old Bonham and Olive. But they've also done work for the city on the city's behalf with a conceptual master plan.
Great. Is this something we should? I mean, we're all kind of throwing out the idea of how this is going to potentially impact all of it. The
Comprehensive.
well, not the comprehensive, but I'm just talking about the site that's directly to the south.
Oh.
All of that crossing, right? I missed.
South is the resident.
No, where's?
Oh, I'm
Sugar
sorry,
Fire?
east.
Oh, to
East.
the east,
I'm getting
Price
a
cross.
price crossing, yeah. But do we need to discuss that with Greg to find out kind of what impacts, just like we would about discussing it with the adjacent neighbor, but reach out to them as well.
I'll see or if he has the opportunity to attend one of the next meeting or provide some comments. He's aware, we've had the discussions, and I know Mr. Miners reached out to him too.
Good. Or at least to have some comments and feedback from them, either just,
Absolutely.
what his thoughts are. That being said, if there's no other further questions or comments related to this, we'll move on to item 5. And I believe this is, all right, it looks like you're on. 6, thank you. Looks like we got out of order. Oh. I'll let it. Be quick. You don't have to state your name and address for the record.
I am.
You don't.
Okay. I just want to, everybody probably already knows this, but I just want to reiterate and emphasize that this is the only entrance and exit out of our neighborhood.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, we will go ahead and move on. I'm looking at the old meeting minutes. That's one. Okay, we'll move on to new business. Carlos, this is 9680 Olive Boulevard, Good Faith.
And Chairman, I'm gonna request deferral on that item. We're still trying to coordinate with the fire marshal to do an assessment of the canopy and the vehicle maneuvering. If there would be any limitations with what's been proposed, so.
Great.
All right.
Okay. So then we'll move on to other business and item A, meeting minutes. And I think I just saw one correction. Oh, no, it's there. There is 5. Never mind.
There is one.
No, I thought there was a correction. but
Oh,
I just didn't read it close or look at it close enough. Can someone acknowledge that we received the meeting minutes February 2nd, 2023?
I'll acknowledge.
Acknowledged. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Carlos.
okay. All right. Chairman, just, of course, the most significant, update would be that our next meeting, scheduled for, the 16th of March will be a joint meeting with the city council. I will not have any agenda items on that meeting. Everything that's been submitted, we'll be shifting to the April 2nd April. I think it's the 4th, the April 4th meeting. We do have 6 houses that we're reviewing, so in hindsight, the extra time helps, staff wise, and it's also the spring break time too, so, I'm sure everybody else can use the extra time, and that will be the week of the 20th, my son's the week of the 27th.
We are meeting
March 16th with the council.
Yeah, that one report, I think we're not gonna have any agenda items. That explains that.
So
That's it?
that's all, that's that. Any questions on their Plant Haven? We're reviewing their outdoor greenhouse, and they're very nice. In there, they illustrated the footprint to the commission, and I think everything is set in there, so it'll probably go through a permitting process, easy storage. Construction's commencing, they're working on those footings and foundations in there, and then UPS store has submitted plans to relocate from the Olivet Center over to Plant Haven facilities right next door to Plant Haven. So we're working with Scott, who's the operator, the local operator here to get that all together. We met with representatives of Bianco Properties, who owns the Olivet Center, because of course, you've probably seen Tuesday morning is closing. Party City is under bankruptcy, but still operating, and they haven't indicated any intent about closing this facility. So we had discussions about opportunities for, and it's on either end if those over continue, and then we talked about the streetscape. Bluntly, we talked about conditions of the landscaping, who owns it, who needs to maintain it, and what are opportunities to kind of collaboratively work to get that improved. In there, I think that kind of Lococo, they tore down the old Neil Hair Design building. That's gone in there, and we have the permits already reviewed for the building construction. They just need to record the consolidation plat, which already went to council and was approved. And then Opus Development right behind Chevy's. There was a change in ownership. So Opus typically is a builder developer, but then once it's completed, they sell. And so we knew that process was going to go through. The company, they're selling the project as a whole to a company that holds on to them. Also does building that they have a relationship. It's called Balboa. They're out of California. They have a couple of facilities here in the St. Louis area. And all it is a name change in there. There is no changes to the number of units of the design of the layout or the improvements that are part of that process, and contributions for the street improvements too. They anticipate they have all their financing together by late May, the permitting process probably around August, September, and then work starting on October. So same building, just different ownership. And that's all I have. You've probably seen stuff on U City, the Deerberg's being approved. They noted a couple of the restaurants, and then the big box that would be next to Costco, with the assumption that that's going to be a target.
Oh, wow.
I told you all that much.
You didn't.
And nobody
I did
listened.
not hear that.
Nobody listened.
No, I did not. Wow. I'm missing. Tell us more.
I appreciate.
More development.
I got my moles, but I can't always say everything. I'm gonna encourage you, so I've been doing my homework. I've been driving around to dispensaries, and the one dispensary that I see that is very similar is Tobias. If you go up to Creve Coeur, there is where the former Shell Circle K gas station is, there's a stoplight.
Mary Meadow.
Yeah, Mary Meadows, okay. And so down on that side, you have a realty, a loan business, and then you have this Tobias.
Trabella, or something like that.
T-
TREB something.
Yeah, but they're a dispensary. They were originally medicinal, and they've now become the both medical and recreational. And you can only get in one way. So if you're heading west, you have to go beyond that stoplight or turn into the complex where it was going to be a QT and park and then go down a hill. And with this one, you also, people would say, okay, well, I'm going to turn in at the stoplight. Oops, all of a sudden I'm on a residential street. And all of a sudden you turn around to come back around. And the thing that makes you think you're going to be able to go up in the parking lot says, no, this is an exit only. I want you to all go look at that. Because with things that I've gone around and driven to so far, and I've driven and done a lot of homework, the Susie social worker that I am, to me, that is the location that is the most similar to, we're going to get traffic off of this on our street. When it really is, you really only have one way in and one way out there. So, just if you wanted, that's a good one to go look at.
Very good.
I think we should look at the part when you're going by there, look at how many parking spots there
Yeah.
are too. There's not a ton of parking.
Yeah.
Go Friday between 4 and 6 or Saturday.
Well, I have to tell you, these young kids, if you go and ask a question, they'll answer you. And I've gone and I've asked questions, just like I randomly showed up and did my due diligence with proper cannabis. And they're like, oh yeah, we were just busy 10 minutes ago. Don't know what happened there, but really we don't have that heavy flow. It is more Friday, Saturday, rather than the other times of the week. Unless you have these stores that offer certain things on particular days, just like restaurants do. So, this is a tough one. I hope you're okay with the modifications the council did. There could be more, but it's up to you to look at your designs now, whatever they bring to us. And, move forward with whatever need to be done. Council recognizes, as I've explained to them, this is tough. Some of the things they wanted looked at by you guys were not your purview. Some of the things that they wanted to do was not our purview, and that we have to just let the process take its course. With that, one more report, please. The city council has begun its search, the process of searching for the next city manager. Barb Sondag, for the first and last time, will be Maxine's Coffee with the Mayor, March 8th. So if you have the opportunity, watch it or watch it on Zoom or be here. So it will be, the appreciation farewell to Barb through the mayor, and then her last city council meeting with this council will be March 28th. Okay.
Reminds me of the gentleman who stated that they only did the cocktail. Coffee. After hours.
Yeah, I think that's been discussed before, and that's interesting. Yeah. So thank you much. The community center is coming along wonderfully. Hopefully it will be done with everything by midsummer. Great Way Greenway is going forward. The final property owner that was within Indian Meadows, signed. And so everything has been signed. That is moving forward. It's all good, guys. It's all good. Appreciate you very much.
Okay. Any additions? Go ahead.
So, where are we at on filling the open slot?
Good question. Good question. I think they've advertised it.
Okay, so we have approached several gentlemen. And we are waiting to see whether they will put in their level of interest. I'm not gonna give them much more time, but at the same time, Ms. Sondag has been out. And you know, she's pretty much one that can get in and verify who has put an application or not. And from that, then the council will continue to have another discussion because this is crucial. And it's, if it gets to a point, ladies and gentlemen, we need to deal with it without it having an attorney, then that's what it will be, because that's not a specific requirement within your definition. It's for professionals, and we have 4 professionals. So if we cannot come up with an attorney, then I believe that we will have to repost without the conditions of an attorney. But I am expressing my opinion here right now as to what I think need to be done so that this board, you know, can have a good, strong one.
We have Paul Martin on speed dial. Well, like, what was it?
And so what I will say is that
Call a
there's-
friend? Oh,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. You know, if there is, you know, but
Yeah,
so.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Dawn?
Nothing to report.
All right, good. So we will adjourn at 9:07. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Chairman. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
I was trying to get it done before 9.